Women tell me all the time, I want a guy who's emotionally mature. I want a guy who's able to handle conflict. I want a guy who's not going to get upset for small things. So, how do you find this kind of guy? We are going to talk about this in today's video, and specifically how to find an Indian guy who doesn't get angry or who knows how to manage his anger. This is a really multi-layered, complex topic that I've been learning a lot about, and I want to share what I have learned with you. My name is Malaika Neri. I'm a professional Indian matchmaker. I help smart women just like you find the right guy for marriage and family. And marriage is really hard. Having kids is even harder, meaning that it will really challenge you to the core. That is why it's fundamental to learn how to manage your own emotions and find a partner who can manage his, because you cannot manage his emotions, right? I want to talk about managing anger specifically today because I've been in a relationship with a guy who couldn't manage his anger. He would throw tantrums all the time. And back then, I thought this was normal. I thought he was just upset. I didn't realize that throwing a tantrum is what 3-year-olds do. And for a 3-year-old, it's fine. They're children, they're like fresh from the womb. They don't know how to manage their emotions, and their brains have not developed to the point where they can manage their emotions. So we guide them through it. And when a child is a child, throwing tantrums is how they process their big feelings. But when you have a 35 or 45-year-old man who's throwing a tantrum, you cannot help him. In a worst case scenario, he can turn violent. If a 3-year-old starts punching and hitting you, you can literally like lift up that child and hold their arms until they calm down and help them calm down too. But when you have a 35 or 40-year-old man in front of you, you cannot physically help him calm down. He can turn violent, and many men do because they simply don't know how to manage their big feelings. That's why it's so essential to look for a guy who can manage his feelings. But how do you find that guy, and what are the signs that this guy is emotionally mature? Let's talk about it. So I want to actually illustrate where these tantrums come from and how you can spot a guy who is going to throw tantrums. Okay, so this is the first time I'm doing a whiteboard recording. Let's try it out. What most of us, our experience with relationships comes from our parents. So let's say this is a child. The child is throwing a tantrum. They've got their fist balled up. Let's say this is a little boy. So we're going to give him some hair over here for my drawing. And I'm also going to give him some tears. So when children are upset, what do? They cry, and that is normal. But here's what happens for a lot of little boys, especially Indian boys. So because a lot of little Indian boys are raised by mothers who had arranged marriages, those mothers are really unhappy because they're married to a complete stranger, a guy they don't even love. So one of two things tends to happen. Either their mom does nothing. This is what we call the passive parent. And the reason she is passive is because in order to stay in that marriage, remember, most Indian women don't make money outside the house. Like they don't have income, so they can't leave their husbands. Their parents have put all this pressure on them to pick some dude from a random selection of dudes who shares the same so-called community, but they don't actually have any emotions for the guy. They're just there because their dad stole them or their mom stole them and maybe threatened them and didn't give them any other choice. I always find it so crazy that a woman like Zarna Garg, who is a highly educated professional from a well-to-do family, her own father threatened to marry her off. So this is very common. And a lot of women just completely shut down their emotions and become passive in every aspect of life. So when these kind of passive women have kids, their kid throws a tantrum, they literally do nothing. They don't even comfort the child. So this is what I call passive, the passive parent. Very common, again, not unique to the Indian context, but because we're here to talk about Indian men, we are going to put it in the Indian context. Then the other option, and this is a little bit, I'm speaking in terms of extremes, there are degrees of variation between these two. But the next thing that you have is the aggressive parent. That's a G. Hope you can read my whiteboard. Okay. So we've got the aggressive parent. The aggressive parent will respond with, let me see if I can put some text here. The aggressive parent will respond with screaming, shouting, violence, or scary behavior like throwing things. And that is what I call the aggression, like the standard definition of aggression, any one of these things. So when you, I mean, all of this is scary for me as an adult, as a 34-year-old woman. So it's even more frightening for a child. Now, when a child is crying, and we're still talking about our little boy, the number one thing that he's actually looking for is comfort, safety, and love. He is actually saying when anyone is upset, but especially little children, what they actually want is comfort, safety, and love. They want to be held. They want to be reassured. Something has happened, either something in the environment, something in their minds. They're freaking out. They don't know how to process it. And they just need an adult who cares about them to hold them, to say it's going to be okay. Maybe give them a little bit of water to calm them down. So that's what they need. But what most Indian boys, little boys get is they get the passive parent who does nothing, does not react to the child, does not make, or rather avoids eye contact, ignores the child, and what was the other one? They might even like be non-reactive, which is the worst of all. It teaches, it like shows the child that they don't matter. So we're going to get to all of this in just a second. But since we're talking about where all these like little boys' emotions come from, I want to make sure that it is very clear for you. So we've got this little boy who's crying. You've got either the passive parent or the aggressive parent, both of which, oops, how do we get that? Both of which are really scary. So what happens in both scenarios? Figure out how to zoom out here. So in both scenarios, this little boy will learn one clear message. He gets the message as a result of his caregivers, his mother figure, behaving like this. He gets the message, I am not safe. And when a small child gets the message that I am not safe, either they will start to shut down, so they will start to become passive. See if I can make another line for you. So what does that mean? They get the message that I am not safe. And what does that do for our little boys? So as adults, they will do one of two things. They will be passive. So just like their passive parent who we've seen, or they will be aggressive. So what does that actually look like? When you see an adult responding to anger in this way, they will do, so to be passive, what does that look like? It means they will show no emotion. If you're upset, they do nothing. They will leave the room. They will ignore you. They will look at their phone. These are all really standard things that people who have developed this passive response will do. And where did they learn it? From their mom, who chose to behave passively. Again, these are not conscious choices. This is a behavior that the mother learned from her parents when she was a very small child. They happen in, I think it happens in the prefrontal cortex. They're not conscious. They happen when you're so young that you don't even realize that it's a learned behavior, and your entire nervous system shuts down. You also lose touch with your conscious self. And so you don't even realize you're doing this. So the boys who are doing this to you, you will notice this behavior in your parents, your brothers, your male colleagues. I've seen it in all of the men in my life. They will show this passive emotion if they don't know a better way, which like most boys don't. Or they'll be aggressive. What does that look like as adults if they get angry? They will scream, they will shout, they will throw a tantrum or a fit. They will throw things. They will punch the wall, use bad language. I have seen all of the above again in the men in my life, both people who I've known professionally and personally. I've seen, and again, it's not about the men I know or the men you know, it's that men do this because they are not, can't move this text, but they are not taught by their parents and how to deal with things in a different way. Because again, when they threw tantrums as 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds, they got no reaction, or they got screaming, shouting, and violence, which sent them the message that I am not safe. And as a response to the emotion, write that there. Emotional response. They respond with either being passive themselves or being aggressive. So there might be, you might encounter men who are somewhere between the two of these. They might be slightly different. But on the whole, this is what you can expect from the vast majority of Indian boys who did not get the comfort, safety, and love of their mother. Let's pause for a second and zoom back out about why this is happening. You have to remember that Indian boys, so most, if not many, if not most of them, had mothers who had arranged marriages. So right away, you have a woman who is not feeling loved, she's not feeling cherished, she's not feeling good. She herself is not feeling safe. And a mother who does not feel safe cannot make her child feel safe. So that feeling of safety comes because the mother had an arranged marriage with a total stranger, and then that total stranger had sex with her. Again, what woman wants that? What woman wants to like have a stranger go inside her? I don't. But this is what happens in arranged marriage. And then you have no choice because your so-called duty as a woman is to produce a child, a male child. Many women in India still abort their child if they think if they have a risk that it's a daughter, which is why we're the only country in the world that has more boys than girls. It's like genetically abnormal because genetically we're supposed to have more women than men, like every other country does, but we are more boys. So all of these topics are linked. Coming back to anger and finding an emotionally mature guy. This means that the mom is not feeling safe because she's in a marriage where she's not happy. She's not feeling loved. She's with a guy who himself didn't get enough love from his parents and doesn't know how to make her feel loved, doesn't pay attention to her, doesn't get her flowers on Valentine's Day, doesn't buy her jewelry, doesn't stroke her and caress her and give her a hug at the end of the day and say, oh, honey, how was your day? Like, it must have been so hard being alone while I was at work. So she's not feeling loved, and neither is the guy. And these people make a kid who also doesn't feel loved and then doesn't feel safe, and then either does nothing when he's upset, or he'll shut down if either you're upset or he's upset, or he will throw a tantrum. So how do you actually find a guy who knows how to manage his emotions? Number one, none of this is a requirement. So just because you grew up with a parent who couldn't be there for you when you needed comfort and love, it doesn't mean you can't go to therapy. You need to find a guy who is aware that he needs therapy and he's worked on his own issues. The way to find out is to just ask him, hey, have you ever worked with a therapist? Have you ever worked with a coach? I myself had a lot of suppressed anger that I only worked through once I started working with a coach, then I studied a lot with a therapist who helped me understand the concept of boundaries. And this is where my healing journey began and where I could begin to release some of the anger that I myself had suppressed as a passive response in childhood. The next thing is to actually observe this guy in many different scenarios. So I go to tennis every morning, and the tennis club where I play, it's a private club. There are like 50 people there every morning, and it's mostly men. It's like 90 to 95% men every single day. So I get to see a lot of different guys. And there's one guy I've observed who like regularly throws tantrums. He's a good player, he's there a lot, but he'll regularly throw tantrums. And at first I was like, oh, he's just had a bad day. Oh, he's just in a bad mood today. But then I realized, no, this is just how he reacts to life. He's constantly in a reactive mode. He's usually in a bad mood when I talk to him. He'll barely say hi to me, even if I give him a giant smile every day. And he will be grumpy as his like default mode, even though he's a really attractive, ambitious guy. So the only reason I realize that he's grumpy and he doesn't know how to manage his emotions is because I've observed him every single week, week after week for the last 4 months. And I have seen him so much being grumpy, throwing tantrums, throwing little what I think are called hissy fits, being he's not rude, but he's not particularly polite either. I've seen him doing this so much that I realized, oh, it's not possible that he's having a bad day every Tuesday, like clockwork. I just realized, oh, he doesn't know how to manage his emotions. And so he's probably suppressing a lot of anger that he didn't get to express as a child because his mom didn't give him enough love and comfort. So it's coming out on the tennis court, which is a public place. He's with a bunch of people who he doesn't know very well. And he's still behaving like this. This is a really solid indicator that this guy is emotionally immature, even though he's hot. Like, this guy is really good looking and he's a good tennis player, but he's an emotionally immature man. And I can see this, even though we barely talk, like we barely know each other. I can see this because I have seen him week after week after week for months. So, number one, you need to ask guy if he's worked with a coach or therapist at all, and preferably multiple times over the course of the past 10 years. And number two, you need to watch this guy week after week after week for a minimum of 4 to 6 months. After 3 months of knowing this guy, I was still so busy thinking, wow, he's so hot, like, oh, he's such a good player, that I didn't even realize that he was grumpy and not even nice to me. But once I started to ask myself, how come he's so grumpy all the freaking time? I realized, oh, like it's just a sign of emotional immaturity because he's suppressing anger that he hasn't processed, hasn't dealt with because he's never worked with a coach or therapist, most likely. So that's tip number two, is you have to observe this guy in multiple contexts, week after week after week, for months. So I've seen him in the winter, I've seen him in the summer. Now I'm going to see him in the monsoon. Like, I'm going to see how he reacts. And actually, the other day it rained, so I got to see how he reacted to rain. And he was very consistent with the same behavior I'd seen all year long. So that is number two. Tip number three is to be conscious of your role in this. This is the hardest part. It was certainly the hardest part for me, and I'm a relationship expert. But what do I mean by be conscious of your role? We attract people who are just like us. So before I had good boundaries, before I'd even thought about what boundaries were, I consistently attracted men who had very poor boundaries. They were people pleasers, they threw tantrums, they shut down anytime there was strong emotion, they never showed anger in an adult way. Like, they never would say to me, hey, today I'm upset, I need to have a conversation, or I need to be alone for the next few hours to process my emotions. No, they couldn't do this. They would either emotionally shut down, say nothing, ignore me, go smoke weed, throw a tantrum, throw things. Like, I would consistently attract emotionally immature men because I myself didn't have good boundaries. I hadn't worked through many of my own issues. I hadn't even thought about how can I be the kind of person I want to attract, like an emotionally immature guy. Then I found this amazing therapist. I read everything she wrote, listened to every single podcast. She lives in the US. At the time, I lived in France. I couldn't like fly to the US and study with her, else I would have. But I started using every single technique that she teaches, and it really changed my life. It was very hard because I had to learn boundaries for the first time in my life as an adult woman. But I started doing that. And I also started doing something which was a game changer, is that if anyone or anything upset me, I would say it immediately. So, example, someone like cut me off in traffic, I would roll down my window and say, hey, that really was not cool. I don't like that you did that. If someone interrupted me, I would say, please don't interrupt me. I haven't finished speaking. The other day, I was having coffee with a friend. She, in the middle of our coffee, which she had invited me to, she paused and FaceTimed her friend. And she's like, oh, it's my friend's birthday. I really need to talk to her. And I was like, look, I don't like it. You wanted to have coffee with me. I'm taking my time to have coffee with you. This phone call to your friend is not urgent. You can do it later. And it makes me feel like I'm not important. She's like, I'm really sorry. That wasn't my intention. I didn't want to offend you. And I was like, that's great. So if that's true, then stop the phone call and do it later. And she did. So every single small thing that upsets me, I just say it immediately. I have stopped being a people pleaser. I'm working on it. I'm not 100% there yet, but I have in large part stopped. I don't take BS anymore. If I'm at a party and I don't like the music, I go up to whoever is deciding what music is playing and I say, can you please change the music to X? And I just don't care at all about asking for what I want. So this has made a huge difference in the kind of men I attract. By and large, I now attract men, all of whom go to therapy. I'm not saying they're magically mature, like recovering from your mom not giving you enough love takes years and it is a journey. So I don't expect these men to be perfect. But I've noticed that they're very able to have conversations about their emotions. They talk to me about going to therapy. They're men who've been in therapy for years. They can talk about their feelings. They understand their feelings. They understand their trauma. And we can have this conversation because I'm already having this conversation with myself. I'm already asking myself every day, Malaika, how do you feel? Malaika, what do you need to feel safe and secure and loved? Malaika, are you tired? Do you need a nap? Do you need more water? Are you hungry? Did something happen that irritated you? And how can I soothe you to feel better without like resorting to eating sugar? So because I have started doing this so actively for myself, I attract men who are doing it for themselves. And that is how I changed what kind of men come into my life. So like this guy I was telling you about who throws tantrums, we're not friends and I don't think we'll ever be. He's not even interested in talking to me. Like we are just not on the same energy level at all. It just happens that I see him, we play tennis together, we're in the same tennis club, but that's about it. Like we are not friends. And I don't think we would be friends simply because I don't think he's like practicing how to manage his emotions better. And I'm not interested in men who are not interested in learning how to manage their emotions. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. I really wanted to share with you this origin of how anger develops in men because it's not their fault. Like men don't get to decide what kind of moms they had. I just had my whiteboard and I wanted to share it with you, but it's apparently disappeared. So I'm gonna turn off my whiteboard. Men don't get to decide what kind of moms they've had, but men, especially Indian men whose mothers had arranged marriages and whose mothers were married to Indian men who didn't know how to love them properly, even if it was a quote unquote love marriage, those men, like their fathers, were emotionally unavailable. So if these little boys, the Indian boys who we want to marry, have grown up with fathers who didn't model for them what it looks like to be emotionally mature and emotionally available, they don't know until they go and work with an expert professional, which is what a lot of my female students have done with me. And in the past, I worked with men as well. And this is what we work through is like, how can they become emotionally available, nice people? And it was really hard for them. Society doesn't give them a template. It rewards them for being these like machos who are rude. Whereas in relationships, you need to be the opposite of a macho. You need to be completely like relaxed and kind and gentle. And you need to be very nice and like super sweet to your partner and supportive. This is what we want our men to do. They don't know how to. So in this video, I have shared these 3 tips with you. It has worked for me personally. And I think that if I can do it as a woman who was struggling with these issues for many decades, I think that you can do it too. My name is Malaika Neri. I help you meet a wonderful man who's going to be an amazing partner to you. Make sure to follow my channel for more videos on how to find an emotionally mature guy, and click the link below. I'm going to be running a live workshop on how to meet an emotionally mature man organically. I meet all the guys in my life 100% organically. Don't use any apps, no algorithms. So if you'd like to join that workshop, it's completely free. The link is in the description. I'll see you there. Bye.